Shh, I've got you. We're so safe.
The baby was already screaming when the sheriff stepped closer. Rain hit sideways. Mud clung to her boots. She did not look at the men. She looked at the child shaking in her arms. "Ma'am," the sheriff said, voice tight, "step back from that well." She didn't move. The lantern near the old stones swung wild in the wind. The deputies kept their hands near their belts. "He's freezing," she said. "That ain't your child," one deputy replied. "He is now." Thunder cracked so hard the ground seemed to jump. The baby's cries cut through it. The sheriff stepped closer, boots sinking. "You don't know where he came from." She adjusted the blanket around the baby. "I know he's crying." The deputy looked toward the dark hole of the well. "Nobody leaves a baby out here." She answered without looking up. "Somebody did." Rain ran down her face, mixed with tears she refused to admit. The sheriff lowered his voice. "This ground's tied to things you don't understand." She looked at him finally. "I understand cold." Lightning flashed, lighting the burned church behind them. Charred beams like ribs against the sky. The baby hiccuped, then screamed louder. One deputy muttered, "It ain't right." The sheriff shot him a look. "Ma'am, hand him over. We'll take him into town." She shook her head. "No, you're alone out here," the sheriff said. "Not anymore." The wind pushed her coat back. The baby's tiny hand gripped her dress like he knew her. The sheriff wiped rain from his brow. "You remember what happened last time you got involved?" Her jaw tightened. "My husband asked questions." "Your husband crossed lines." "He told the truth." Silence fell heavy even with the storm screaming. The deputies shifted. One whispered, "Sir." The sheriff raised a hand. "Ma'am, I won't ask again." She stepped back from the well, not toward them but away from it. "You don't scare me." He looked at the baby. "You don't know what comes with him." She held the child closer. "Then let it come." Thunder rolled long and low. Water pooled around the stones. The sheriff's face softened for half a breath. "You already buried one man." Her voice did not shake. "And I'd bury 10 more before I leave him here." The deputies exchanged a look. "We could take him by force," one said quietly. The sheriff stared at her. She stared back. The baby's crying slowed, just a little, as she rocked him. "Listen to me," the sheriff said. "If that child's tied to what I think he's tied to, men bigger than me will come." "Let them," she said. "You won't win that fight." "I don't need to win." She adjusted the blanket again. "I just need to stand." Lightning struck somewhere close. The sound split the night open. The baby flinched and buried his face against her chest. She pressed her chin to his head. "It's all right," she whispered. The sheriff watched her carefully. "Why?" he asked finally. She blinked rain from her lashes. "Because nobody came when I cried." The deputies went still. The sheriff swallowed hard. "You keep him," he said slowly, "you answer for what comes with him." She nodded once. "I've been answering alone for years." The sheriff stepped back. "We'll talk in the morning." "No," she said. "You won't." He hesitated. "You think this ends here?" She looked toward the burned church, then down into the dark mouth of the well. It never ended. The wind eased just a little. The baby's cries softened into weak whimpers. She turned without waiting for permission. Mud pulled at her boots as she walked away from the well, from the sheriff, from the men who had watched her husband burn and called it an accident. "Ma'am," the deputy called once more. She did not turn. The sheriff's voice followed her through the rain. "This will bring trouble." She shifted the child higher in her arms. "Good," she said quietly. "Let it." She kept walking until the well disappeared behind the storm. She stepped inside the farmhouse, soaked to the bone, mud squishing from her boots. The baby cried, a low, rattling sound that made her chest ache. She laid him on the kitchen table, wrapped him in the only dry blanket she had, and rubbed his back. The fire in the stove crackled unevenly, throwing shadows that danced across walls stained with old smoke and loss. A knock at the door made her stiffen. "Who is it?" she called, voice sharper than she intended. The door creaked open, and the neighbor, an older woman with deep-set eyes and a wary mouth, stepped in. "You shouldn't have brought him here," the woman said, dripping rainwater onto the floorboards. "He was alone," the widow said, tightening her grip on the blanket. "Alone," the neighbor repeated. "Nothing near that well is alone." She looked toward the shadowed hallway, where the wind rattled the old window panes. "The well?" she asked, her voice small. The neighbor nodded, eyes darting. "It belonged to the founding family," she said. "Years ago. Women disappeared. Babies too. They shut it all down, made it disappear like it never happened." The widow frowned, smoothing the baby's hair back from his forehead. "Why tell me now?" The neighbor's lips pressed tight. "Because you're holding the last piece they didn't find. Or didn't want to find." The baby's cry dropped to a whimper when she touched a small silver locket around her neck, her late husband's. It had been buried beneath old letters she never touched. The neighbor gasped. That belonged to her, the midwife. The one who vanished. The baby stared toward the window, wide eyes tracking movement that wasn't there. "He sees it," the neighbor whispered. "What?" "The storm," she said. "It's still in the walls. It hums. It waits." The widow's chest tightened. "He's safe," she murmured to the child. The wind rattled louder, chimney groaning. The baby turned his head sharply, gaze fixed on the corner where the shadows pooled, and whimpered again. She picked him up, cradling him to her shoulder. "I won't leave you," she said softly, voice carrying more conviction than she felt. The neighbor stayed near the door, hesitant, as if she feared the house itself might listen. "You think you're safe here," she said, "but the well, it doesn't give. It takes." Silence fell heavy, broken only by the baby's soft hiccup and the drip of rain from the roof. The widow paced the small room, rocking the child. "What did it take?" she asked. The neighbor shook her head. "Everything that was ours. Women who spoke, babies that cried. They hid it all, buried it beneath lies. Only some survived. Some they thought they buried for good." The widow tightened her grip on the baby. "Then it's him. He survived." The neighbor's eyes flicked toward the stove, where the fire struggled. "Do you know what you're holding?" The widow's voice was quiet but firm. "A life. That's enough." The baby made a small sound, almost a laugh, when the widow hummed a song her husband used to sing. The neighbor exhaled, almost relieved. "That locket," she said again. "It carries memory. Whoever touches it carries some part of her, part of them. That baby, he feels it." The widow glanced down, watching him calm against her chest, eyes closing briefly. The wind moaned again, brushing through the open cracks of the old farmhouse. "He's seeing what they hid," the neighbor said. "Or what they hoped no one would see." The widow's jaw tightened. "Then we'll see it together." The baby shivered and grabbed her fingers. She let him, letting the chill seep through. "They won't stop," the neighbor warned. "The storm's old, but it knows you took what belongs to the buried. The town, the families, they'll come. They always come." The widow looked out the window at the darkened landscape. "Let them," she said. "I won't give him up." Lightning struck nearby, sharp and sudden. The baby squirmed, but she held him steady. "It's all right," she whispered. The neighbor's lips pressed into a thin line. "Some nights, it whispers." The widow nodded, eyes on the child. "Then we whisper back." Another gust shook the house. Rain pounded harder. The baby's eyes followed a shadow moving across the wall. She whispered, "I'm here. Always here." He quieted for a moment, pressing his face into her neck. The neighbor exhaled slowly and backed toward the door. "I can't stay." "You're braver than most," she said. The widow didn't answer, only rocked the child. The floorboards groaned beneath the weight of history pressing in. The fire sputtered. Outside, the storm raged as if alive, yet inside, the house held one small heartbeat against the chaos. She whispered again to the baby, "The well knows. But so do we." He grasped her fingers tighter, and for a moment, she allowed herself to believe that might be enough. The storm shrieked through the night, but she would not let go. She would not leave him. The baby slept fitfully against her chest as she moved through the hallway, each step creaking under the weight of wet boots and years of silence. Shadows clung to corners like old regrets. The wind rattled the windows, a reminder that the storm had never truly left. She paused at the trunk in the far corner, her husband's trunk, half buried beneath dust and the smell of old cedar. She knelt slowly, fingers trembling as she lifted the lid. Papers, notebooks, a faded leather folder with handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Her hands shook. She pulled out a sheet marked with names, some crossed out, some circled, and just one stood apart, written in careful script. Samuel. The baby stirred in her arms, eyes fluttering open, staring at the papers like he recognized the letters before she did. "Samuel," she whispered. He cooed softly. She blinked back moisture, trying to steady herself. "That's your name," she murmured. A crash of boots outside made her start. The sheriff was at the door again, dripping wet, rain running down his shoulders. "You still got him?" he asked, voice low. "Yes," she said, keeping her gaze on the papers. "And you still hiding bodies," she said, voice sharper now. The baby cried, tugging at her necklace, the silver locket glinting in the dim light. The sheriff glanced at it, unease flickering across his face. "Governor's people are asking questions," he said. "You think they'll stop?" she asked. "Not if they find him first," he admitted. His hand hovered near the gun at his belt. The baby's wail rose, cutting through the tension, and she pressed him tighter. "Hand him over and this ends," the sheriff said. "It started long before him," she shot back, eyes hard. The wind groaned through the gaps in the walls, shaking the old shutters. She turned back to the papers, scanning names, dates, connections. One mark, a birthmark sketch, matched the baby's tiny shoulder, just beneath his wet sleeve. Her stomach clenched. "It's him," she whispered. "The last one." The sheriff's voice was quieter now. "I don't know how you keep him safe." "By not letting go," she said. The baby's hand found her finger, clutching it like he understood. "He'll be taken if you stay here," the sheriff warned. "Then they'll have to try," she said, voice firm. He exhaled sharply, torn. You're braver than anyone I've ever known," he admitted. The baby gurgled, staring at the papers again. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room and the crumpled pages like they carried a secret the night could never swallow. The wind rattled louder. Shadows lengthened. She held Samuel closer. "You're safe now," she whispered. The sheriff stepped forward cautiously. I can't protect him all the time," he said. "I know," she replied, calm despite her racing heart. "But someone has to." The baby let out a small laugh, eyes wide, almost knowing. Outside, the wind shifted. A branch scraped the window, sharp and sudden. She flinched. "They're coming," the sheriff said. "Doesn't matter," she said, lifting Samuel higher. "I won't let him go." He looked at her, searching her face, seeing the weight she carried, the grief that never left, the fire that refused to burn out. "You understand what this means," he said. "I understand who he is," she said. "And I'll see it through." She glanced back at the trunk, at the papers marked with names of the vanished, the stolen. Her husband had uncovered something meant to be buried. She felt his presence in that room, a quiet ghost at her shoulder. "They tried to erase it all," she said softly to Samuel, "but they missed you." His small fingers touched her cheek. The room seemed to grow colder. Shadows flickered near the corners. She whispered, "We'll make it right." The sheriff swallowed. Some truths, they hurt more than lies, he said. Then we'll live with it, she replied. Better to face it than let it rot in silence. Outside, the wind howled again, testing the walls. The baby whimpered but did not cry. He looked up at her with eyes that seemed older than his months. She brushed damp hair from his forehead. Samuel, you're going to know your story, she said. The sheriff hesitated at the doorway. I don't want to see what happens next, he said. Neither do I, she whispered, but it's coming anyway. Samuel shifted in her arms, small fingers clutching her coat. She pressed her lips to his head. Don't be afraid, she said. We're together. The wind shook the house, rattling every board. Shadows pooled in corners, and the baby stared at them intently, calm but watchful. She let him feel the papers, the history, the truth. You'll remember what's yours, she said. Lightning lit the room one last time. She tucked him close and whispered, You survived because I refused to leave you. That will never change. The sheriff exhaled slowly, voice low. I'll stand by you, for now. She nodded once. Samuel settled against her, breathing easier. Outside, the storm's edge faded, but inside the walls, the weight of buried names and stolen children pressed on them both. She would not let go. She could not. The horse hooves hit the dirt outside like drums announcing war. She didn't need to look, she could hear the weight of suits, polished boots, and the quiet authority that followed them. Samuel stirred in her arms, eyes wide and bright in the dim light of the farmhouse. Who is it? She asked, voice steady though her pulse thudded in her ears. The door burst open. Two men in dark coats stepped through, dripping water and menace. That child belongs to the state, one said, voice smooth, almost polite. He belongs to whoever loves him, she shot back, stepping between them and the baby. You're making a mistake, the second man said. She shook her head. I've been making the only choice that matters. The baby stiffened, screaming suddenly, a high-pitched wail that cut through the room like glass. She pressed him to her chest. Shoo, Samuel, she whispered. It's all right. One of the men flinched as the sound filled the walls, and she realized he recognized the truth in the baby's cry. What's wrong with him? The first man asked. He hears names, she said. He remembers what they buried. The second man laughed, short and brittle. It's a child. Nothing more. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the rain-soaked landscape, the burned church in the distance, and the twisted shadows of their faces. The baby's crying stopped abruptly. He turned his gaze toward the men, eyes unnervingly calm, almost knowing. She held him tighter. You burned my husband, she said, voice low. The first man's expression flickered. Careful, he said. You think this is about him? She shook her head. It's about every life you stole, every name you erased. Outside, the wind rattled the shingles, and the storm seemed to echo her words. The baby tugged at her necklace again, silver locket glinting. The second man took a step back. He's reacting, he muttered. It's just instinct, the first said. The widow didn't flinch. Instinct, she asked. He's the last living piece of what you tried to hide. Her voice rose. And I refuse to let you take him. The baby's cries had turned into a low hum, almost a chant, as if he were repeating something buried in memory. The men exchanged uneasy glances. Blood always comes back, she said quietly, voice carrying more weight than the rain outside. The first man's hand twitched toward his coat pocket. She noticed it. Try me, she said. The baby cooed softly, clutching her finger, staring up at the intruders with the calm of someone who had seen centuries. The second man's jaw tightened. He's not normal, he said under his breath. She smiled faintly. Neither was every soul you silenced. The first man's eyes darkened. You don't understand what you're holding. I understand perfectly, she replied. It's a life. And it's mine to protect. The baby shifted, small fingers gripping her coat, eyes never leaving the men. The wind slammed against the walls again, and a shadow moved across the room like something alive. The intruders flinched. She pressed Samuel closer, letting him feel her heartbeat. "You'll have to go through me," she said. "Try to take him, and you'll wish you hadn't." A sudden knock on the window made them all jump. Lightning struck again, exposing the silhouette of another man at the edge of the yard, tall, imposing. "Governor," she whispered. The intruders froze. The baby whimpered, but did not cry. "He's more than a child," she continued, voice low. "He's the proof of every lie you've told." The first man's hands dropped to his sides. "We were told, we didn't," he stammered. She shook her head. "You were told to silence the past. But the past doesn't stay buried. Not anymore." The baby's gaze followed the governor's shadow across the rain-slick ground. Her jaw tightened. "Do you know what happens when names come back?" she asked. "Do you know the weight of the life you erased?" The governor stepped closer. "You shouldn't have him," he said, voice cold but uneven. "I won't leave him," she replied. "Not now. Not ever." Lightning illuminated the room one final time, throwing long shadows against the walls, highlighting the papers, the locket, the baby's small hands gripping hers. Outside, the storm began to ease, but inside the house, the tension coiled tighter than ever. The baby blinked at the governor, calm, unwavering, almost commanding. The intruders stepped back, uncertainty breaking their facade. The widow held Samuel higher. "This ends here," she said. "No one takes him." The governor's eyes flickered, haunted, a shadow of recognition passing over his face. "Blood always comes back," she whispered again. "And it starts with him." The baby cooed softly, pressing against her neck, and she felt a shift in the room, a power no suit or title could claim. The intruders exchanged a last look and backed toward the door. "We'll return," one said. "Maybe," she replied. "Maybe not." The governor lingered at the threshold, gaze locked on Samuel. The baby's tiny hand reached for him, curious, fearless. She held him tight, whispering, "You're safe." The wind rattled the windows again, carrying a distant rumble of thunder. The governor's shoulders slumped slightly, uncertainty flashing across his face. "You can't keep him forever," he said. "I intend to," she replied, calm, resolute. The intruders retreated into the rain, leaving her standing in the doorway with Samuel, the storm slowly fading outside. She brushed wet hair from her eyes, holding the baby close. "He belongs here," she whispered. "With me." Samuel cooed, small fingers clutching hers. The shadows lingered in the corners, but for now, they had one. The first light of dawn barely touched the edges of the farmhouse when she stepped outside, Samuel strapped to her chest, wet blanket pressed against his small body. The ground was soft from the storm, mud clinging to her boots as she walked toward the well, each step heavy with years of memory she didn't want to face. The wind whispered low through the trees, carrying a scent of earth and rot. She dropped to her knees, hands digging into the dark soil, the baby cooing faintly against her shoulder. Her fingers brushed against something hard. She pulled, heart hammering, revealing cloth frayed and darkened with age. She froze. "No," she whispered. She tugged again. Bones, tiny, fragile, almost hidden beneath the dirt. Samuel stiffened, small fingers gripping her coat. She exhaled slowly, shoving mud from her face. "I found you," she whispered. The sheriff appeared then, stepping quietly over the damp grass. "Stop," he said softly. She didn't. She shook her head. "Look." He crouched beside her, face pale in the weak light. His eyes went wide when he saw the small bones, remnants of what had been hidden decades ago. "How many?" she asked. He swallowed, shaking his head. "I didn't know." She pressed Samuel tighter. "You knew enough." The wind picked up, whistling through the trees, carrying memories of women who had vanished, of children stolen. "Governor's father," the sheriff muttered, voice barely audible. "Paid to silence midwives who exposed illegitimate heirs. Babies disappeared. Some rumored wrong blood. Some just gone." She clenched her fists in the wet earth. "Then Samuel is the last." The baby's head rested against her shoulder, small eyes blinking slowly. She kissed the top of his hair. You survived because I refused to leave you. The sheriff's hand hovered near his belt. They'll kill him, he admitted, voice low, shaking slightly. Then they'll have to kill me first, she said. Rain began to fall again, light at first, then heavier, soaking her coat, running into the earth around the grave she had begun to uncover. The bones, wrapped in remnants of cloth, were not many, but enough to tell the story. She pressed the pieces together, feeling the weight of the stolen lives, the silence that had hung over the town like a curse. Every name, she whispered. Every life erased. The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. We can't, not everyone can see it, he said. Then someone has to, she replied, voice hard, eyes fierce. Samuel gurgled softly, small hands curling around hers. You're safe, she murmured. I won't let them take you. Outside, the wind whistled through the empty fields, carrying distant sounds of men moving through the town. She didn't flinch. Let them come, she said. We face this now, or it never ends. The sheriff exhaled slowly, voice thick. I'll stand with you. She glanced at him, eyes fierce. Then help me make this right. Her hands worked faster, uncovering fragments of what the town had tried to bury, the lives they had stolen, the evidence of their cruelty. The baby's small hands brushed against the mud, unconcerned, curious. She laughed softly despite the weight pressing on her chest. Even you can see it, she said. Even you understand. The sheriff nodded, pale but resolute. It's true, he admitted. All of it. Buried in the earth, in fear. But it's true. She pressed Samuel closer. Then truth wins today. Lightning cracked, though the sky was gray, revealing the ruined shapes of old church beams in the distance. She shivered but kept working. Names carved in ash, she whispered, blood that won't stay hidden. The sheriff's voice broke softly. I don't know how to make it right. You start by not lying, she said. You start by standing. Samuel cooed, small face nuzzled against her neck. She pressed a kiss to the top of his head. You survived because I refused to leave. That's how it starts. The wind moaned through the hollowed fields. Shadows from distant trees stretched across the ground like fingers. She kept digging, uncovering cloth, fragments of memory, small bones that breathed truth back into the open air. The sheriff knelt beside her, hands deep in the mud, pale and shaking. They'll come, he said. Let them, she replied. I'm ready. The baby stirred, blinking slowly, small eyes catching the pale light. See, she said softly. They can't scare you. Not anymore. The ground was soaked, heavy with the weight of all that had been hidden, and yet she pressed on, feeling history beneath her fingers. The wind rattled the farmhouse in the distance, whispered through the trees, carried the scent of earth and old blood. She stood finally, lifting Samuel high. We'll face it, she said. We won't let it bury us again. The sheriff stepped back, pale and wet, voice quiet. You're braver than anyone I've known. She nodded once. Samuel gurgled happily against her chest, a small triumph. Then let them come, she said. Rain fell heavier now, cleansing, powerful. Bones and earth had spoken. The past was laid bare. And she would not let it take him. Night fell heavy and black, the storm's remnants still shaking the air, when she heard the first glass shatter. A window near the kitchen exploded inward, sending shards across the floor. Samuel's cry pierced the dark as she grabbed him, pressing him close, feeling the heat of fear spike through her chest. Shoo, she whispered, rocking him, I've got you. Boots pounded outside. Men's voices called softly, then harder, demanding entry. They're outside, a deputy yelled from the shadows, his voice shaking. Take him, she snapped, eyes narrowing. The deputy froze. No, she said. You hold him. She pressed Samuel to her chest, moving toward the flames flickering in the distance, the smell of smoke curling in the kitchen. The fire had started in the corner room, small at first, licking at the old floorboards, spreading faster than anyone could react. "It's coming," the deputy shouted. She ignored him, stepping into the growing heat. Gunshots cracked the night, echoing across the fields. "It ends tonight," the sheriff said, stepping into the doorway, gun drawn. She didn't flinch. "It started tonight," she replied, voice steady. The baby whimpered but stayed pressed to her chest. She lifted him higher, eyes scanning the shadows. The fire consumed the kitchen table, smoke curling like smoke from old graves. She walked calmly through the room, boots squishing in wet ash and splintered wood. "Get out of the way," a man shouted. "I'm not moving," she said. "I'm saving him." The sheriff's eyes widened. "You can't watch me," she said, voice quiet, lethal. Flames licked higher, casting twisted shapes against the walls. The baby's small hands clutched her coat, pressing to her neck. She whispered, "It's all right. I've got you." She opened the back door, fire spilling from the broken windows behind her. The night air hit her face, wet with rain and soot. Outside, the wind twisted with the smell of smoke. She held Samuel close, moving toward the remnants of the old shed, where dry boards could give footing. Gunfire cracked again. She didn't stop. "Stay close," the sheriff shouted. "I won't leave him," she said. One of the intruders appeared in the doorway, silhouetted in flame. "Step aside," he shouted. She shook her head. "You touch him, you die," she said. Samuel cooed softly, almost sensing the tension. The intruder froze. She moved past him, calm, eyes locked forward. Flames reflected in her eyes as she reached the trunk containing her husband's papers, soaked and smoldering at the edge of the room. She kicked it free, water from rain and melted snow pooling around it. "This has to survive," she said. The sheriff knelt beside her, helping stabilize it. Outside, the intruders retreated momentarily, unsure. "He'll be gone if we stay here," one muttered. She pressed Samuel to her chest. "Then stay alive," she whispered. Fire licked higher, consuming the walls she had once called home. Every floorboard groaned, the house screaming as if alive. She glanced at Samuel, small eyes wide but calm. "We've been through worse," she said. A figure emerged from the shadowy tree-line, tall, imposing. The governor himself, rain running down his coat. "You can't save him," he said, voice cold, almost amused. She stepped forward, flame light illuminating her face. "Try me," she said. Samuel's small hands touched her neck, gripping her tightly. "He belongs with me," she said. The governor's expression hardened, then softened, haunted by some distant memory. "You don't understand what he is," he said. "I understand perfectly," she replied. "He's a life, and I will protect it." Thunder cracked, startling the intruders, and the fire's reflection danced in Samuel's eyes, showing no fear. The sheriff fired a warning shot into the air. The intruders hesitated. She lifted Samuel higher, stepping through smoke and heat. "It ends here," she said. "We survive or we burn." Gunfire echoed, bullets embedding in wood that splintered around them. The baby's small fingers brushed against the papers from the trunk, still damp but intact. "See," she whispered. "Nothing can touch us if we hold tight." Flames licked the ceiling, sparks falling around them like fireflies caught in storm wind. The governor stepped back, uncertain, observing the baby's calm demeanor. She held Samuel to her chest. "You're safe," she whispered again. The intruders finally retreated, disappearing into the night. Smoke and ash filled the sky, but the child remained untouched, held firmly against her heart. She stood tall amidst the destruction, rain and fire washing over her, holding Samuel, defiant. "We survive," she said. "Always." The farmhouse lay in ruins behind her, smoke curling into the night, embers glowing faintly like dying eyes. She held Samuel against her chest, rain washing ash from her coat. The governor stepped from the shadows, boots sinking into mud, coat dripping, face pale but stern. "You don't understand what he is," he said, voice sharp but wary. "I understand perfectly," she replied, standing tall, mud clinging to her skirts. Samuel stirred, small hands curling around her fingers, eyes wide, unafraid. This child is more than a baby, the governor said. He's the proof of what we hid. And I'll protect him, she said. You burned my husband for less, she added quietly, eyes glinting in the firelight, the night echoing the weight of her words. The governor's eyes flickered, haunted. You don't know what you're holding. I know what it means to fight, she said. Samuel cooed softly, tiny hand brushing her cheek. And I'll fight for him. The sheriff stepped from behind her, dripping wet, hands at his side. We stand together, he said, voice rough. She glanced at him, nodding once. Samuel's gaze followed the governor, calm, as if he understood the story that had been buried for decades. You can't keep him, the governor said, stepping closer. I intend to, she said, voice steady. Not just for tonight. Not just for him. For all the lives you tried to erase. Lightning flickered across the sky, revealing the skeletal remains of the farmhouse, blackened and broken. The intruders from the night before lingered at the edge of the tree-line, weapons lowered, uncertain. The wind twisted through the ruined walls, carrying whispers of the past, the stolen children, the hidden graves. Do you know what happens when truth returns? She asked, eyes locked on the governor. Do you know what it takes to hold what should never have been taken? The governor's jaw tightened. Samuel's small fingers tugged at her coat, clutching her, grounding her. I will not give him up, she said. Not now. Not ever. The intruders flinched at the conviction in her voice. The sheriff stepped forward, hands gripping his wet coat. Governor, he said, voice low, the truth's out. Everyone knows now. The children, the midwives, the lies, it's all here. The governor's expression flickered, guilt passing briefly through his eyes. I was following orders, he said, almost pleading. Orders to hide blood, erase names, she said. Did you think the dead would stay buried? Did you think the past would remain silent? Samuel cooed, small fingers brushing against the papers she had rescued from the fire. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the baby's face, calm, commanding. The governor stepped back, uncertainty creeping into his posture. He's more than I imagined, he admitted, voice quieter now. The widow pressed Samuel tighter, holding him high. He's the last, she said. The last piece of what you tried to destroy. And I will not let you touch him. The intruders shifted uneasily, realizing their authority had crumbled. The sheriff's gaze locked on the governor. It's over, he said, voice firm. The lies, the fear, it ends now. Samuel gurgled softly, reaching for the governor, tiny hands outstretched. The man froze, unsure, haunted by the baby's innocence and unyielding presence. He knows, she whispered. He knows who's honest, who isn't. And he chooses. The governor's eyes fell to the ground, shadowed by remorse. Gunfire erupted suddenly, shards of light cutting across the field. The intruders reacted, stepping back, unsure of orders. She moved closer to the baby, pressing him to her chest. It's all right, she whispered. We face this together. The sheriff aimed, firing into the distance, a warning, not an attack. The governor's hands trembled slightly. You can't imagine what I inherited, he said. I inherited blood, power, fear. Then you understand, she said. It's your choice what to do with it. Will you bury it, or will you let truth live? Samuel's small hands gripped her coat. His eyes, wide and steady, reflected the firelight. The governor's shoulders slumped, the weight of the past pressing down. I see now, he said. I see what was done. The intruders hesitated, tension breaking the facade of control they'd maintained all night. She held Samuel high, stepping into the rain-soaked yard. Do you understand? She asked again. The governor nodded slowly. Yes, he said, voice low, haunted. He stays. The sheriff exhaled, stepping closer. For the town. For the stolen. For the truth, he said. She nodded once. Samuel's small coo broke the tension, tiny hands brushing her neck, calm, commanding. The wind twisted through the broken walls, carrying whispers of buried children, stolen lives, and silenced women. We end it tonight, she said. Not with blood, but with truth. The governor looked at her, pale, uncertain, haunted by names and bones he had buried, secrets he had inherited. The intruders lowered their weapons, stepping back into the night. The sheriff put a hand on her shoulder. It's over, he said. She pressed Samuel to her chest, watching the governor retreat slowly. Not entirely, she whispered, eyes on the child. There's still the past, still the memory, but he survives. Samuel gurgled again, small hands clutching hers. The wind shifted, the storm finally broken. Embers floated from the farmhouse, glowing faintly against the dark, rain-soaked ground. She looked down at Samuel. You are alive because I refuse to leave you. That will never change, she whispered. The sheriff nodded beside her, silent witness to the vow. Lightning flickered one last time, illuminating the ruined landscape, the skeletal beams of the farmhouse, and the baby's calm face. We face what comes, she said. Together. The governor's shadow lingered at the edge of the field, silent, haunted, knowing he had lost what he tried to control. Samuel pressed small fingers to her cheek. She pressed her lips to the top of his head. You survived, she said. And we survive with you. The sheriff stepped back into the darkness, leaving her standing tall, holding Samuel against the ruins of the house, against the ashes of the storm, against the weight of every stolen life. The night held its breath, the wind stilled, and for a single moment, they existed without fear. The blood oath had been claimed, the oath fulfilled, and a small heartbeat proved the world could still hold mercy. Dawn broke weak and gray over the ruined farmhouse. Smoke still rose in thin curls from the blackened beams. She stood in the doorway, Samuel pressed to her chest, wrapped in the damp blanket that had survived the night's fire. The ground was wet, churned with mud and ash, footprints of men and memory pressed deep into it. The sheriff approached quietly, boots squelching, rainwater dripping from his coat. He's calm, he said, voice low. Too calm, she replied, adjusting the blanket around Samuel. He knows what's coming. The baby gurgled softly, small hands clutching her neck. She looked at him, eyes fierce but tender. We've made it this far, she whispered. We won't stop now. The governor appeared again, hesitant, his boots sinking in mud. He can't stay here, he said, voice uneven, carrying the weight of 100 stolen lives. She shook her head, eyes hard. He will stay. Not with you. Not with anyone who would hide him, erase him, or take him for power. Samuel's small eyes followed the man, calm, almost commanding. The sheriff stepped beside her. He belongs with her, he said, voice steady. He's safe here. The governor looked at the child, small fingers brushing his coat, eyes wide, unafraid. He swallowed hard. I see that now, he said. But there will be others. She pressed Samuel tighter to her chest. Then let them come. He survives because I refuse to leave him. That will never change. The rain began to fall again, steady and cleansing, washing the ash from the ruins, washing the fear from the night. Samuel cooed softly, tiny hands brushing her cheek. Do you see, she whispered to the sheriff? Even after everything, he trusts. The sheriff nodded, watching, silent witness to the bond between mother and child, survivor and inheritor. The governor's shoulders slumped slightly. I can't undo what's been done, he admitted. No, she said, voice quiet but unyielding. But you can stop it from happening again. You can let him live. Samuel wriggled, small fingers curling around her necklace. She pressed her lips to his head. He survives because we survive. That's the only law that matters now. The wind twisted through the broken walls of the farmhouse, rattling the charred beams like the last whispers of the storm. She walked to the edge of the yard, boots squelching in mud, holding Samuel high. Look, she said softly. The world isn't gone. The storm passed. Lightning flickered faintly over the distant trees, showing the ruins, the shadows of men long gone, secrets buried and unearthed. The governor stepped back, silent, haunted. Do you understand what you've done? He asked. I understand what I must, she said. I understand who I protect. And I understand that no one, no law, no legacy, will take him from me. Samuel gurgled again, small hands brushing her cheek, tiny fingers gripping the damp fabric of her coat. He chooses, she whispered to the governor. He chooses life, truth, and safety. With me. The governor nodded slowly, haunted, uncertain, knowing the fight was lost, not by blood, but by love, by choice, by survival. He stays, she said aloud, pressing Samuel to her chest. And we'll see it through. The sheriff exhaled slowly, rain dripping from his brow. You've carried enough, he said quietly. Not enough, she said. But together, maybe. Samuel cooed, reaching for her face, and she let him, letting the small, fearless hands anchor her to hope. Men lingered in the tree-line, uncertain, unsure of their orders, their authority, their power. She did not flinch. Let them come, she whispered. We face the past, the present, and everything hidden in between. He survives, and we survive with him. Samuel's eyes followed the shadows, calm, fearless. The governor's hand brushed his coat, hesitation in every line of his posture. He's more than a child, he said. He carries the truth we try to hide. She nodded once. And that is why he stays. The wind shifted, carrying distant cries, the ghosts of women, children, secrets unearthed. Samuel pressed small hands to her neck. She kissed the top of his head. I've got you, she whispered. Always. The fire in the ruin smoldered faintly, casting orange light across the mud, the broken walls, the wet earth. She stepped closer, holding Samuel high, showing him the open world. See this, she said softly. It belongs to you. You survived it all. And now it's yours to claim. Samuel wriggled, small hands brushing her face. She laughed softly despite the weight pressing on her chest. We've made it, she said. Not because we wanted to, but because we refused to stop. The sheriff stood behind her, silent, boots sunk deep in mud. You've done what no one else could, he said. Kept him alive. The governor stepped back, rain dripping from his coat, eyes haunted, finally silent. I see it, he said. I see what I cannot change. She pressed Samuel to her chest, walking slowly across the mud, holding him close. Then go, she said softly. Leave the rest to me. Lightning lit the sky faintly. The intruders had vanished. The field was empty but for mud, ash, and the small heartbeat against her chest. Samuel's small fingers curled around hers. He survives, she whispered again. And I will see it through. The wind shifted, carrying the whispers of the past, and she let it touch her, steady, grounding, relentless. Nothing would take him. Not fire, not storm, not men, not lies. The baby cooed softly, small eyes wide and fearless. She pressed a kiss to the top of his head, feeling warmth that no storm, no ash, no shadow could steal. You're alive because I refused to leave you, she whispered. That is law now. That is truth. The sheriff nodded, stepping back, leaving her standing tall amidst the ruins. She turned toward the broken farmhouse one last time, Samuel in her arms, mud and ash clinging to them both. We survived together, she said, voice low but firm. Samuel gurgled, small hands brushing her neck. Always, she whispered. The storm had passed. The night had passed. And the child would stay. The first weak rays of sunlight broke across the horizon, illuminating the mud, the charred beams, the wet grass. She held Samuel high, letting him see the world waking, the day beginning anew. He will stay, she whispered again, almost to herself, almost to the ghosts of those lost. Samuel's small hands clutched her coat. She kissed the top of his head, pressing him close. And we'll survive, she said, voice steady. The sheriff finally exhaled fully, watching them. He's safe, he said quietly. For now, she replied. Samuel gurgled softly, cooing, a small heartbeat proving they had survived, proving the storm and fire could not take him. She held him high, standing tall among the ruins, the ash, the mud, the echoes of lies, and whispered again, he will stay. The sky was pale, the storm finally gone, leaving wet mud and a smell of earth and ash. She stood in the ruined yard, Samuel pressed to her chest, tiny hands clutching her coat. The farmhouse behind them was nothing more than blackened beams and smoke curling into the morning light. She let the baby look around, his small eyes wide, curious, unafraid. "It's safe now," she whispered. "No one can take you." The sheriff approached quietly, boots squelching in the mud. "It's quiet, for now," he said. She glanced at him, eyes tired but steady. "We've survived worse," she said. Samuel cooed, small hands brushing her neck. She pressed a kiss to his head. "And we'll survive everything else, too." The governor appeared at the edge of the field, rainwater dripping from his coat, face pale and uncertain. "You kept him," he said, voice low. "He's alive," she said. "And he stays." Samuel shifted slightly, small fingers reaching for her necklace. The governor swallowed. "I can't undo what was done," he said. "No," she said softly, "but you can step aside." The sheriff's hands rested on his belt. "He belongs here," he said. "And I'll make sure of it." The governor's eyes flickered toward the field, uncertain, haunted by the past. Samuel's small gaze followed him, calm, fearless, almost knowing. "He chooses life," she whispered. "And we'll honor that choice." The baby gurgled softly, small hands brushing her cheek. She laughed lightly, a sound that carried over the wet fields. "See? Nothing can scare him," she said. The sheriff nodded, watching silently. "You've done something no one else could," he said. "Kept him alive, kept truth alive." She pressed Samuel tighter to her chest. "Then the world starts here," she said. "With him." The governor stepped back, uncertain, finally silent. The intruders from before had disappeared, leaving only mud, ash, and the distant hum of the waking town. She glanced at Samuel. "You survived the storm," she whispered. "You survived fire. And you'll survive everything after." The wind shifted gently, carrying whispers of the past, the children who had vanished, the women silenced, the graves opened. She knelt, letting Samuel touch the wet earth with his small hands. "This is yours too," she said softly. "You're part of the story that no one can bury." The sheriff crouched beside her. "You've given him more than safety," he said quietly. "You've given him life." Samuel pressed tiny fingers against her cheek, small coos filling the quiet. She kissed the top of his head. "And I'll protect it," she said. "Always." The governor lingered at the edge, silent, finally turning back toward the town, a shadow carrying regret and recognition. Sunlight broke across the horizon, illuminating the mud, the ruined beams, and the baby's calm, wide eyes. She stood, holding Samuel high. "Look," she said softly. "It's a new day." He cooed, small hands gripping her coat. She laughed lightly. "You see? Life doesn't end with fire or storm. It begins again." The sheriff stepped back into the field, boots heavy in the mud. "You're ready for this," he said. "I am," she replied. "We both are." Samuel wriggled, tiny fingers curling around hers. She pressed him to her chest, smiling despite the weight pressing down. "He will stay," she whispered. "And we'll make sure of it." The field was quiet now, except for birds stirring in the distance, a soft wind brushing the wet grass. The ruins behind them were a memory, the storm behind them a warning. Samuel's gaze shifted to the horizon, small fingers brushing her neck. "He'll grow here," she said softly. "Safe. Loved. Free." The sheriff nodded, silent witness. "You've carved out a new life from old lies," he said. "And you'll guard it." The governor's shadow lingered briefly, then disappeared over the mud-streaked fields. The baby's small coo carried over the quiet, proof that survival, love, and courage could still endure. She pressed her lips to his head. "We survived the storm," she whispered. "And now we survive everything after. Together."